going back to like this course that these journalists used to do, um, and they gave the example of like what's important in writing and how you emphasize it. So say if you were to write, you know, dog bites man, that's not that really interesting. But if you write man bites dog, then that tells you like, you know, and it's like how you actually concise an entire story about a man biting a dog into like a very like, you know, and giving quite a lot of detail into that, and how focusing on your words. And like what I do actually for the Instagram posts that we've been doing together, like we just for um you know, transparency. Well, like we write these things as like snippets of design and chuck it on Instagram. But what I've been doing is opening up Grammarly, which is like the writing tool, and that's helped me so much because I'm dyslexic. So I miss out on so much incorrect grammar. So spelling your and you are like incorrectly,
Right.
affect. You know, like my grammar
Yeah,
is just
yeah, yeah.
terrible. Um,
I mean, it is a pretty awesome plugin.
yeah,
I
no,
use it
and
all the time
I
too.
open up the actual browser, and what I do is I write a whole bunch of stuff that I want to say, and then so like open up Figma to design these templates, and then so you write, and then so get it bullet point, and then take it back into Figma, and because it's like you've got this concise amount of space that you want to put in there, you start thinking, okay, now it's like first part is making sure the flow and grammar makes sense as as a bullet point story, and then it's like, okay, how can we make this even more concise? So taking that back into Figma and think, okay, what can we simplify the language here?
I
The other
like that.
thing is, I think why scannability is probably quite popular on the web is a large portion of the web is speaking English as a second language, and a language of the web is predominantly English. Maybe it's changed in terms of volume. I mean, it's a hard way to assess because if we're talking about volume, it's probably one of the Chinese languages or Indian languages, like because just by volume of people. But in terms of widely spoken, English is the language of the web. Um, so therefore, when people are trying to learn something, there's an added incentive to make it scannable and simplified so that more people can understand, as well as the algorithms that translate things, which will do better if the language is simple as well. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, again, this is all context. Like if you're trying to um, renew your mortgage or do insurance, you don't really want like here's top tips for blah blah. You want the is am I covered if someone falls in my house? Am I covered if you know the building falls down? You want to know like this, and this is not something that you can really scan.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the thing which I learned working with writers is how hard it is to see um, good writing because you just take it for granted, and how you notice bad writing almost immediately. Like bad grammar is like just pops out. And when I spoke to like conversational designers, this is like a good conversational design with say like a Google Home or an Alexa or whatever. Um, it's quite you don't see a good conversation because it's just natural. It's when it breaks down you notice it, and I think the same thing happens in writing. Um, and so yeah, no. So this article about scannables and methodical writers, it kind of gave me hope that there are people who really want to read. It also breaks from some of these silly rules that we used to have. Like I remember back in the days, like hey, you have to get within 3 clicks, or people will get tired, and there could only be 7 links on a web page. Like all this stuff is like pretty much rubbish now. We know from like 20 years of working on the web. So people do scroll. They're more likely to scroll because they're scanning. And yeah, so I really like this.